Hello and welcome back to the Game Dev Show. I'm here with Andrew today for a nice, I think, interesting pre-GDC show. We're talking a little bit about Game Developer Conference that's coming up, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about GPT4 that just released a few days ago. It looks pretty freaking amazing. So, oh, where's that music? Is that music you, Andrew?
Oh, it could be me.
Some AI generated music playing automatically.
It was the ad in the background.
Oh,
when the
nice.
stream started. I hadn't muted YouTube yet.
Yeah. Cool. So good morning, everybody, and hello. So Andrew, how you been?
I've been good, tired and good, and excited for next week, GDC.
Yeah, next week we've got, this is, I guess, really it's the biggest game developer conference. It's the biggest, the game developer conference, the one in San Francisco that's coming up, where Unity is always a big part. Epic is, I think Epic is a really big part this year, from what I understand. I don't really know the details, but I heard that they are doing much more than they did last year, I think. And a lot of other really cool stuff there. It's where I first saw the Tilt 5 stuff and quite a bit of other really cool tech, where JetBrains showed off the Writer Flow plugin for the first time as well. That was really cool. So I'm excited to see a lot of really neat things and see what kind of stuff's come out, what things have changed, and how much it's changed from being about NFT and crypto stuff. Because last year it was like probably, I wouldn't say it was that much. It was probably realistically like 10%, but it felt like it was like 30 or 40% because the crypto stuff seemed so big.
And some of them were big. Some of them were like the one booth next to Unity's booth was this giant open floor, and it was huge, but it was some crypto thing. And there were just so many small ones as well. So it just appeared to be all about NFTs and crypto and stuff. So I do expect this year to be a far bit less NFTs. I'm sure there.
Do you think it's going to be all about AI?
I don't know if it will be all about AI. Was there enough time to get to that? Like NFTs had a good like 10 months a year before GDC came back. AI's had since about August things started really blowing up. So I think there will be AI. I don't know if it will be all AI, but we'll see. We should take bets, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I wonder what everybody in chat thinks. You guys think it's going to be AI related stuff, something else? What's going to be the biggest thing? I have a sense that there's going to be a ton of talk about AI, and even the booths that aren't about AI stuff are going to have like some AI looking thing there to just entice people to come over and look at it.
Yeah,
that's what I expect, at least. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what other kind of cool stuff is there, and really to see what the cool AI uses are, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff coming out. I just signed up for this AI newsletter. I'll have to find and share the link and get a daily email now from this guy who shares all kinds of cool stuff about what's going on with AI. And it's like 5 new tools every day that have come out that, revolutionize the way you do different stuff. So it seems like it's just going really, really fast.
Super fast. Yeah, and like Aaron said in the chat, you can't stop this train now. It's left the station, it's on its way, and you're either on it or off it, in my opinion. But I think I was just talking with some folks yesterday, actually, over a dinner about it, and there is so much fear around AI right now. And I think even the CEO of OpenAI mentioned in the GPT4 announcement, they have fears too over it, because it could be used to produce disinformation, to produce, it's coding better now, so it could create viruses. If you were able to develop an AI that doesn't have guardrails, you could do a whole lot of really, really terrible things with this kind of technology. But one could argue the internet is very similar. Internet's huge. We all use it. Now we take it for granted. It could be used very, very in poor taste, and it can be used for a lot of really good things. So I think we're going to have to learn. There's going to be some bumps along the road. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be just like the internet. I remember when the internet first kind of got big, people were freaking out that you could find information on how to do all kinds of illegal stuff on there, like make napalm in your garage or other kind of weird, dumb shit that my friends would tell me about. Like, no, we're still not doing that. But yeah, I think that with AI, it's gonna be kind of the same. Like, yeah, you'll be able to do stuff, but I don't think that it's gonna make it so that well, yeah, it probably is gonna make it so that bad people can do bad things better, but it's gonna make it so that all people can do things better. So
Yeah.
kind of a side effect of it, and I don't think that that's a good reason to not advance things just because some people
Yeah.
are probably going to misuse it. The bigger concern is probably for all of the people who may quickly get their jobs replaced by
Yeah.
ChatGPT, and I don't think
Yeah.
that it's necessarily gonna be programmers right away,
No.
um, although I do think that it's gonna help reduce the demand for programmers because it's gonna make the existing ones or the ones that are out there more effective and faster. I mean, not just ChatGPT, but AI in general, right?
Mhm.
Pilot and all of the AI stuff just built into the code editors now. It auto completes, I don't know, 50 to 75% of the stuff that I'm gonna write now. I don't even have to write it. I just put the variable name and it knows exactly what I want to type, how I want to type it, how I want to format it, and I just hit tab and I get my next three lines automatically. So
Yeah.
it's I think it's gonna make it so that we can do more with less time and maybe reduce that demand, but I don't think it's gonna instantly, I mean, by instantly, like in the next 5 to 10 years, get rid of or decimate programming. I think that
For
beyond
jobs.
that, it certainly might, like beyond the 10-year period or 15-year, um, it certainly could. But yeah.
I I think one of the big fears that people have, beyond people making napalm and TNT and blowing up the world, is that job thing. And it's interesting. I was talking to a colleague at work, someone I don't actually know them, but I just messaged them because we were in private. There was a group thread, and I said, let me message them. We were talking about essentially the job replacement issue and the idea that, especially with art, when we were talking about Mid-Journey or something, artists are being ripped off, they're being stolen. And I see all this from a perspective of, hey, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe there is, like, okay, I can now make a copy of something where before, if I wanted to copy an artwork I saw on the wall, I'd have to draw it by hand. I can't draw. Now I can copy that, but I can also do more with it. And I think the Mid-Journey of today is not the same as the Mid-Journey tomorrow. Yes, I am. I have a staff in my other house. But we I think make a mistake if we think that whatever's happening today is what's going to happen tomorrow, because it's not. Tomorrow we're going to be able to take something that this AI creates and then use our brains, our human brains, to augment it, to keep working on it until we get what we really wanted to get out of it. So that's going to help people become artists. People who aren't artists today can become artists. People who aren't programmers today can become programmers, can learn. I mean, I've learned already from ChatGPT 3.5. I just signed up for 4, and I did some random quick tests with it yesterday. And holy shit, I'm going to be redoing some of my work with its stuff, because its stuff, for the complex stuff that I don't quite understand, is better than mine. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to become a better human, a better programmer because of it. Not just because it makes me more efficient, but because I'm a guy who's going to learn. I'm going to be smart about it. I'm going to understand what it's saying. I'm not going to just use it. And I think that's the future. That's what it's going to be. Some folks in the chat have already said it's a tool. We've said this in the past as well. It's a tool. And it does strike me, I remember way back in 93, 94, 95, when the internet first started coming out, we were told, I was probably in freshman in high school then, 8th grade, something like that. We had to write an essay. We were not allowed to use the internet. We had to go to the library and do all of our research in the library. It was against the rules to use the internet, which of course is ridiculous now. I also remember a few years before being so pissed off at my 6th grade teacher because I could type and nobody else could, but I could type because my dad bought computers, and I was told I had to write in cursive rather than type my paper. Can you imagine a teacher today saying that you couldn't use the internet and you had to write in cursive for your essays? Of course not.
Got to be ready for when the internet goes out.
And so all these schools banning the chat GPT, it's not about, I think in the other fear of like the bar, you pass the bar exam 90% of the time. Great. That's good. Do I really care if my lawyer can recite information, or do I care if my lawyer is able to get the right information, bring it down to how it affects me and my goals in that relationship, and get me the result I want? I don't care how my lawyer gets that information. I only care about the result. And I think that's the big thing. There's all this fear that people are going to lose their jobs, that people are going to become somehow idiots or dumb because we rely on this tool, as if none of us know where north is anymore because of MapQuest. And the reality is, I think it's not going to do any of those things. It's going to make us all a lot better and going to give us better results, faster, easier, more efficiently, less costs, and just enable a whole lot of new things for people who could never, ever dream of doing those things before.
I think you're dead on. But I also think that some people are going to lose their jobs pretty quickly.
Yeah. But they'll find new ones.
And
I think more jobs will be created.
I wonder what kind of jobs are going to go first. I don't know. Anybody in chat has an idea? Let me know. I'm kind of curious what everybody thinks. I can see some writing jobs definitely disappearing, especially the ones that are less about like a really unique creative story. I still think like, story writers and all that will probably have jobs, obviously, because somebody's gonna come up with the story and know that it's good and interesting. But yeah, there's a mention of copywriting in chat. I think that there's probably going to get hit because it's very easy to have it write you a sales letter or a sales message or even an ad for a YouTube video or something. I can have it write me out a script, and I don't like them when it does it, but I can have it write me out enough that I can use them as a template and kind of build off of them if I wanted to. Some people saying low level programming, and I don't know about web design. That's an interesting one. So that got called out, and I've seen even a couple months ago some tools that just automatically generate websites now based off of AI images and AI text, and that was obviously pre GPT4. So I'm really curious. I wonder how that's going to work out with in the future, because a lot of web design stuff is for small places that don't need something complicated. They just need a website that matches and kind of fits with their theme. That's probably like 9 out of 10 websites.
But so it's, I don't know how, I agree that web designers today won't be doing the same job tomorrow, but I don't imagine that a company will not hire somebody to do web design. I think that person who's hired to do web design will simply use tools that utilize AI in order to do their job, but they will still have their job. Maybe they don't need as many. That could be a thing. And maybe they spend less time. I mean, hey, there's a lot of push among at least tech to go 30-hour work weeks. One way to get.
There's also, I mean, when you think about it, I've got a friend who just started a business, and he needed a web page, and he was looking at hiring a web designer, and I sent him the AI thing. This was in January, and he generated a web page, and it was better than the thing that had been kind of presented to him as a possible option, and it was free and instant, and he just used that. So I could see it replacing, at least getting rid of a lot of those those kind of like one-off and smaller contract things. Maybe not for like permanent places that need somebody doing something bigger, but I could see it getting rid of a lot of the independent contracting for web design.
That's what Dreamweaver did 20 years ago or so, right?
Yeah. Suddenly this is even easier because you just have to write a sentence now, and it's done.
What's interesting is, yes, that one position is now changed, but that means that your friend and thousands or millions of other people can now spin up a web page faster. How many businesses will get off the ground, that very basic ground, because now the person who has the idea in their head is able to put a web page up when before they would have gotten stuck because they either didn't have the money to pay someone on Fiverr or because they didn't know how to find someone on Fiverr to do it. Fiverr might be one of the biggest casualties, but maybe not.
I could see it getting hurt. Yeah.
And that's where I think we have to think about, okay, jobs are going to be lost, but jobs are going to be created. As more and more businesses are made because it's easier to create a business, some of those will be taken over and some or growing, and they will need new people to do various jobs. That said, it just means everything's going to change, and we're going to have to, go with it. Voiceover, that's an interesting one too. I think yet for, right now, AI voices, you can tell, right? They're going to get better, but the problem with acting is it is very human, right? And until you can tell an AI how to act, I don't think we're gonna have voiceovers for pre-conceptual work, but we're not gonna lose our artists there for a while.
You give it like 6 months and you'll just be able to give it the story and it's going to imply the context and know exactly the right tone.
It might, but a real actor is going to do the same scene like 5, 6, 7 different times. That work with the director, work with the editor, who's really a second director, and so I think we're going to have changes there, no doubt. But I also think that a lot of the human stuff will still be human. We're always going to have painters. In fact, I think painters are going to become more valuable after this, because anyone can make art, but if you want real art, you have to hire a real artist who's doing it with their hands, who has a story, who has a background. That's why people buy art now, like real art, not the art you get in IKEA, but the real art. If you pay, $3,000 for a painting, you're not buying it because you just like the picture. You're buying it because of the whole package. And I think that's not going to change. I don't see how that would change. We're just going to have a whole lot more ability. Like, oh, I just actually got a new house. Instead of going to IKEA for my artwork, I just ordered some canvas prints with Midjourney prints. I'll report back once I have them. I'll bring them on the show and we can see how they came out. That is going to happen, right? So now IKEA is going to lose all their business of selling, cheap artwork that they worked with the artists on. But I think that's okay, personally.
Yeah. I think in the voice acting one, I think you're right on the movie side and on kind of like the bigger side, like bigger productions. I could see it probably not being hit as much, but for video games, I think it's going to make a drastic difference because I know I don't quote me on the numbers. I don't remember exactly, but I think on EQ2 the voice acting budget was like tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah,
it was many millions. I think it might have been many tens of millions. Just on voice acting because there was so much of it in the game. Like when it initially launched, every quest and every NPC, every line of it was voice acted.
Yeah.
So in that, obviously in a big MMO, that's a ridiculous amount of audio, right? And of course, over time that fell apart because you can't keep getting those same voice actors to go back and fix the dialogue and add the new things in for the new quests. And designers constantly want to be adding stuff to an MMO, and you can't do voiceovers constantly, and especially not at a budget like that when it's ridiculously expensive. But now you can do this stuff dynamically, and from what I understand with the latest stuff, you can do it all kind of at runtime on demand. So you can get the voice data in there and then have it generate whatever you want and say the stuff at runtime. And just work. So I expect that in the next year or two, that's going to be relatively common in games. Probably just be some plugins in Unity and Unreal that you drop in and give it some text and some inflection, and then it just does the thing. I don't know how it's going to tie in with. I guess I'm not sure how companies are going to use it and monetize it well. Because it's the kind of thing that a few years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, would have been like $1 million middleware package, but now there's so many people working on and competing on it. Who knows what it
probably a subscription.
Yeah, but I don't know how that ends up, how that works when you have a something built into the game, right? If it's at runtime and it's in your executable that's shipping, can't really have a subscription for that.
Yeah, so that I would imagine would be $1 million license
Yeah,
situation. And eventually it'll get cheaper and cheaper, and eventually Unreal Unity might have one built in.
that's what I was thinking. Eventually, it'll just get bought by the engines or whatever and
Yeah.
integrated in or something.
And
But
that I would bet that's a 5 to 10 years away at least. I think we're going to get fits and starts towards that, but people will know it's AI and people won't like it because of that inflection issue.
I don't know. I heard the latest one that I heard. Story sent me one a couple days ago.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was the inflection was clear, and it was with a voice that he picked. He grabbed a voice from YouTube,
Yeah.
uploaded the voice, and a little clip of it, and then it was able to just sound perfectly like that voice, saying all kinds of stuff. I was blown away. Like,
Yeah. So, I mean, this moves fast, so I'm probably wrong.
yeah.
And maybe it's going to be a lot faster.
Yeah, like announced at GDC.
Could be.
Everybody now has AI chat in all their stuff.
Next week could change everything.
Who knows? I don't know. I don't actually expect anything, but I do think that something probably will happen there in the next few years. But I think just the change and the ability to do voice in games without having to sit in front of a microphone and record everything, and ideally without having to do very much work. If you can just go in there and be like, "Yep, human male voice, randomize," hit randomize a couple times so you get one that sounds like what you want, and then it plays out your text. I think that that's kind of the ideal. So you can have voiceovers with little to no work, where a game designer can just put them in and not have to have a whole turn. Because in every game that I've worked on with voiceovers, which has been a lot because I like putting voiceovers and stuff. There's always this just long, slow turnaround process on it. So I think getting rid of that will make it so that everybody does it for all the stuff, and it'll just be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly wouldn't. I can imagine a world where a game does all that and then replaces it with humans at some point. I would imagine at some point EverQuest, whatever, is going to want to have voices that don't sound just like every other game. And part of the problem with AI right now is that homogeneity, where things just kind of all fit into these same buckets, and you can start, oh yeah, that's a Mid-Journey picture, that's a Stable Diffusion picture. That's going to change over time, of course. It's going to get better, but for some period of time, folks will be able to know, oh, they probably use this AI because of these things that my brain is picking up on. And I think the big budget games won't want that. They'll use art assets from the asset store in the background where nobody really notices them, but they'll never use it for their hero characters, right? And it's the same concept. I think they're going to want to own that IP, especially if they go up and start doing movies and other things. They're going to want to own the sound of that voice and to know that nobody else can just kind of make the exact same voice and have legal rights to use it, same as everything else. Yeah. So, translators, sure.
Yeah, I want to talk about this one. There's a comment here, and it just made me start thinking. It says GPT4 could possibly threaten translators, and hopefully there are no translators watching right now. But I think that that's probably a great thing. Like if it can, and not that it's good that it gets rid of the translator jobs, obviously, but I think that if we can get to the point where we can just have some glasses that have a universal translator or an earpiece that just does that, so that you can just walk up and talk to anybody, like in Star Trek and all that stuff, or maybe just go get your little shot like Farscape, right? Like, or half the other shows. So you just get a little injection. I think that would be great. That would be really, really awesome if everybody could communicate easily and just be able to translate stuff. I don't know. I think that's good.
I fully agree. This goes back to, I think, the fear of these people are going to lose their jobs. Okay, that's fine. Let them do other jobs. One of the things is, first, do we need people to do jobs? I mean, that's just a philosophical thing. Why do we need people to have jobs? What if all machines did all of our work, what would that world look like? We'd all be playing games. We'd all be volunteering our time. We'd all be talking about philosophy, making music. We'd be having a good time, I think, most of us, because most of us don't actually want to have our job. We
Yeah, there's
just,
probably not a lot of people that enjoy translating stuff. It's
yeah.
probably fun at first, but it does seem like it probably gets boring and tedious after a
And for
while.
those who do love it, well, guess what? I think the president of the United States will still have a human translator because they're not going to trust a machine, right? They need a human to do the high level work. And that's going to make that job even more valuable, especially with less people doing it. Those who do focus on it are going to become even bigger experts on it. And they will use AI to help them. Same with concept artists. Somebody mentioned concept artists. They're not going away. They're just going to become more valuable because the human aspects of these jobs are something that the AI, I think, will have a lot of trouble replicating and being able
I
to be
think,
as
but when you
nimble.
say more valuable, you mean the more valuable high-end ones will still exist,
Yeah, and
and the other
they'll
ones will
be paid
disappear.
more,
So,
and they'll
yeah,
be paid more for that.
but there will be less of them.
There will be less of them. They will be paid more and appreciated more because they can do things that the machine can't.
Yes, they are definitely getting hit the hardest, though, out of everything that I've seen
Yeah,
concept art, because
yeah.
it's so much easier to do concept art if you can
At
just
our
because
level,
the speed, it's largely just the speed. But I
yeah,
think that concept artists that are starting to take advantage of AI stuff are
yeah.
hopefully getting some really big benefit out of it at least.
What a person doesn't hire a concept artist to make art. That's not why a concept artist is valuable. They have to be able to make art, but that's not why you hire them. You hire them because they're able to put into a picture ideas that come from other people's heads. They're able to translate ideas into images that can then drive a direction of a project. So does it matter if the concept artist is drawing things by hand or drawing things with an AI tool? The skill is not the drawing. That's not the valuable skill. The valuable skill is the translation and the communication and the quick understanding that really only humans can do, at least for the next 20 years, in my opinion, that you get from a good concept artist. A good concept artist, you can talk for 10 minutes and they will come back with exactly what you were looking for. And they will even understand the things you weren't asking about because they have so much experience in those things. And that's these are the skills that you're really paying for. We think about it, well, we need art. And I think about when I need a character, I need a new character. It needs to be a knight. It needs to look cool and all that. I don't really need an artist to translate my ideas. I just need something to give to my 3D modeler so they have something to go off of and don't have to create all themselves out of their own head. But for real concept artists who are working for Blizzard, who are working for, movie studios that are making movies, that's not going to change. They're going to use AI, but it just means more people can be concept artists now. And the real skill is that communication and the human aspects of it, I think.
Yeah, I think that, and kind of like you said, knowing what to look for and what to recommend, and how to make things better. Which, who knows, that may end up being something that AI is doing, next Friday or something. But my experience with artists is generally that, like, I can show them something and they can recommend, like, these things. This area should be darker. This should be this, or we should make it look like more like this other game. And they have really good recommendations and are able to kind of drive that process instead of me just kind of randomly going off stuff. Because I mean, I can make some concept art, but I don't make good concept art. Don't get me
Sure.
wrong. Like, if I needed to do an actual, like, big full on game, I'm gonna get a real artist who's gonna come in. And the one thing that's really nice is it may not necessarily need to be a concept artist. The one thing that I think that the AI tools are definitely doing is making it so that people can do more and kind of expand out and broaden those skills. So if you want to do 3D art, you can also use these tools to make pretty good concept art. You can also use the AI tools to do animation and do pretty good animation without having to go through the entire process of learning all of the fine details of animation yourself. So I think that it's going to make it so that a single artist or a set of artists can do a wider set of things, just like it'll do for programmers and really for probably everybody else. Like it's kind of broadening things out. It may not make you necessarily be specifically better at one thing, but it could make you better at everything. So.
Yeah. When you program a thing for a client, and Story talks about this a lot, I think, when you're doing something for a client, part of your job as the programmer is to understand what they're asking for and to know when they're asking for something that they shouldn't be asking for, or to understand, like, okay, you want this thing to move over here. Will you ever want other things to move over there? And if they say, oh, maybe, okay, well, I'm going to do this differently. And that's the human element. You then go and code in Writer with AI to do the thing. But the interpretation, that communication, that human element is going to be far more difficult for AI to do for now. In the future,
For now, yeah.
we'll
I
have this
still
conversation.
think that at least sometime before I'm dead, we'll have some freaking holodecks. They might not actually be holograms, but at least the interface for doing the code will be similar, so you'd be able to talk to it and tell
Yeah,
it stuff, even if it's still just projecting crap onto the wall or something. But
yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
expect some damn holodecks.
that is an interesting future, and I think that will happen eventually. It might take a lot longer than we think. I think that's perhaps one of those, going back to the AT&T ads of "you will" things, where how it looks will be weird. But yeah, I imagine one day I'll be able to say, I need a system that shoots an arrow and hits a target, but I don't know. I know where the target is. I just don't know what angle the arrow should be at. That's actually what I asked ChatGPT4 yesterday.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
asked ChatGPT very similar questions. Anything that's related to vector math, quaternions, anything like that, I'm like, hey, let's just go see what ChatGPT says because it's going to have a better solution that's one line and actually works and doesn't error out when I'm looking up or something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in the future it will say, here you go, rather than here's the code. You can look at the code, you can try to understand the code, but in this world that we're talking about, you're not a programmer, you're just a creator of a thing. And at that level, you stopped caring what the code looks like. At that level, it's not about what the code looks like because you've got an AI who's telling you, nope, the code checks out, it works.
No,
The
it's
AI
just
is telling
another
you,
abstraction that'll just
yeah,
be called the code going forward, just like
yeah,
we abstracted above machine code and assembly language and kept going up and up and up. Yeah,
yes.
it'll be very similar. Just like, yeah, no, I code in talking to the computer and telling it what I want. So,
It's an interesting because that's such a, I think part of the, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the reasons some of the languages, coding languages, people like because they're more natural language because they sound like it. So how much more natural can you get then? Oh, I need this to do a thing. Oh, make it more blue. No, 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 not that blue, more navy blue, darker. Yep, there you go. That is a fun way to code, in my opinion.
yeah, I think it's going to be definitely the future. So I wanted to pop up this question, or this really, it was a statement kind of about what you were talking about earlier, and it says we need jobs to participate in the economy. So you're asking, what if all the jobs go away because robots take
Yeah.
over, like Wally? And it says our society is built on making people believe they need stuff to be happy, and without jobs, they won't be able to afford stuff. So I doubt jobs will ever go away.
Yeah, I don't think there will ever be a time where paid work goes away because there's always going to be need to be somebody to do a thing. It's just going to be less, and I don't have any real solutions. I like guaranteed basic income. I like the 30-hour work week. I like the idea that, hey, people who work at McDonald's should also have a 30-hour work week and get paid more than they currently get paid. I like the idea that, hey, if you work full time, there should be a minimum wage that's much higher than it is today. I'm very liberal on all those things. Call me Bernie Sanders if you want. But I don't think that what we have today is what has to be. And that's the big key. I don't have the answers, but I do know one thing, that what we have today does not have to be what we have tomorrow. It could go any direction. So I guess I'm hopeful and optimistic then that we'll go in a direction that requires people to do labor like non-optional labor that they do for rewards, basically getting paid less, so that there's more leisure time, which really does increase the economic benefits of people buying stuff or doing services, education, classes, volunteering, stuff like that. I think as we get to a point where we can do more of what we need with less resources, like direct human resources, of course, things are happening. Robots are doing things that's already happening today. I mean, Amazon warehouses. I mean, it's robots are already doing so much. I'm okay that we don't need janitors anymore once we have robots cleaning everything. I don't need my toilet to be cleaned by me or the person I hire to clean my toilet. If I have a robot to do that, I'd rather have the robot do it. So I do hope, I'm optimistic that in the future we just have a situation where it's not all about, stuff. And essentially what we have today is the fear of suffering. We are afraid of suffering, so we get a job. I don't want to lose my house, so I have to work. Sorry, kids, I can't hang out with you. I got to do this proposal because I have to get this contract, because I have to get this bonus. Otherwise, we can't do sending you to college. So right now we have a system where it's based on suffering. As things get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, we can either simply have more stuff, which is, in the past 50 years, probably a lot of what we've done, or we can change how we view things and perhaps work less, so we don't need as much money, whatever that means, to buy the stuff we do need: housing, food, health, clothing, the basics. That's my theory.
I think that's the general path that we've been on throughout humanity. If you look through history and stuff, people worked a whole lot more for a whole lot less, and they first working just to stay alive, just to get enough food to live and all that. And hopefully, it just continues to get better for people on average, I guess.
That's the goal. I think,
I think AI and stuff in general should be able to kind of help with that, AI and tech in general. I don't know for sure the details either, but I would assume that the industrial revolution and mechanization of things has helped a large number of people. I'm sure it's hurt some people, but the AI is going to probably do the same. It's going to help a large number of people and hurt some people as well. So.
Yeah. And this is all very philosophical and stuff. I think the world, we all just need to be aware of stuff like, we all use our cell phones, but there's a lot of people in some countries that are essentially slave labor right now in order for us to have all our cell phones. That's a problem.
Yes.
Robots could be doing that job. Robots are more expensive than those people right now. That's a problem. That's a philosophical problem. That's a moral quandary that there are some people who are willing to put others into positions for monetary gain. Maybe with AI and things becoming cheaper, maybe monetary gain changes to where people don't necessarily have the same motives. But I don't know.
Well, then I guess you also got to figure out what happens to those jobs. Like, it's a way more complicated mess than I understand, for sure.
I used to always like to say that the cure for cancer is working at McDonald's, because there's so many smart people out there who don't have the opportunities to get the education required in order to be in a position to even know that they're smart in this one thing. Like you don't know what you don't know. And if you've never been exposed to chemistry and biology, you might not know that not only you're good at it, but you enjoy it,
Yeah.
And so that, the cure for cancer is working in a cobalt mine right now.
Yep. The same with programming. There's lots of people they never get exposed to it, and then, or I've seen a couple people who get exposed to it really later in life, and they're just blown away by how much they love it, and they never knew that they were going to love it, and they never knew it was a thing. They didn't even think it was a possibility for them, and then they started in like their 30s or 40s or whatever, and got into it. And they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was at all. I thought it was magic witchcraft, and it's actually something I'm really good at. So
you can add me to that column right there. I did basic coding stuff, only the bare minimum to get done what I wanted to get done. Wasn't until I started learning Unity that I was like, whoa, wait, there's a whole lot more here. And so
that's, you realize
I was exposed
not that hard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to read off this other comment here. It says that they're using ChatGPT and a team to help develop an MMO concept. Mock out they said, go ahead and do the thing, mock the idea, and call it ridiculous. But they figured to like it because I worked on Vanguard, and I love MMOs and love working on MMOs. So I do love it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with making an MMO concept. The thing that I always mock is trying to build an MMO by yourself and not just trying to build an MMO, but trying to build basically like a Warcraft clone as a solo developer. Because there's occasionally there are a lot of people, usually they're teenagers, but not always, who get that idea and like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna make it's not always MMO. Sometimes it's Call of Duty or something. They're gonna make Call of Duty with some new weapon, but I think this is really cool. I think that using ChatGPT would really help with the concept and with design docs. I actually haven't tried out ChatGPT4 for design docs. I'm really kind of curious how it is. Maybe I'll pull that up and we can mess around with that live for a second. Before we
Yeah.
do though, everybody hit the like button. I saw the word like in that sentence and reminded me to tell everybody hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and share the stream, please, and say hello in chat as well. What's
So,
up, Andrew?
Jason, yeah, I just shared a link on the Unity release, the 2023 gaming report, I think they're calling it. And I read this earlier this week, and one of the things that struck me that relates to the solo developer making an MMO or a small team making an MMO, one of the slides has developers are working fewer hours. So you got to click the get the report button, the blue button near the top. And then scroll down. There's a slide with 3 people with swords fighting on the left side, and it's developers are working fewer hours. It's probably like it's near the top. It's probably like the 5th or 6th or 7th slide down.
There
you
it is.
go. That one.
I thought that was a dragon in the little thumbnail.
If you look at the indie line there, average developer hours worked 1 million hours. So clearly, many solo and small team developers are much lower, and they're reducing the average. But I don't have $1 million hours to work on a project. So I just thought this was interesting. Kind of benchmark of the games that are being released, the AAA games are being released, how many hours get put into making one of those games. It's a lot. And so, yes, MMOs are going to be much more daunting for a small team or an indie than, a Flappy Bird clone.
Yeah, for sure. But it's definitely possible if you scale it back, right? I think that it really comes down to scope, setting a realistic scope and sticking with that scope and not expanding it, because that's what tends to kill timelines on these things. Is you change things, you add scope, you add more to it. Like Star Citizen, I think I remember when that first got announced, and I think it's drastically huger now and still getting in development. Lots of other stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely cool though. I'm interested in seeing what the concept is like. So if you end up sharing it, let us know. I'll check it out. What else is in this report, by the way?
There's
I
a
didn't
whole
go
bunch
through the
of
whole
stuff.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably should have talked about this before because it's some interesting stuff. The studio's making 1 year at the very top, 1 year release plans. That's interesting, I suppose. I guess that means people are looking for a quicker return on their investment. These are studios we're talking about, so makes sense. It's all about the money in the end. I love the third slide. Studios are using pre-made assets to test ideas quickly.
I wonder on the release plans too, if this is largely influenced by the fact that it's so much easier now to get these games out and done too, because a lot of the companies have switched to using Unity and Unreal, and they're not just building custom stuff or trying to extend their custom engines. Because one of the things that was always I switched to a little bit bigger view. One of the things that was always really slow was making it so that your engine supported the things that your game wanted to do. So they'd be building like at Sony, they'd be building another game. Like, okay, we're gonna put this game together. Like Free Realms was one of them. I remember they were putting the game together using the existing engine and stuff, but they wanted to do all these other like little mini games and stuff, and the engine just didn't have support for like 2D mini games. It's not part of this 3D MMO engine at all. So all these things had to keep getting added in and built in, and it just really slows down the development time. Where if you're in Unreal or Unity, you've got that 2D workflow already there. You've got all of the different things for like core game types kind of already exist there, so you don't have to recreate it. So I think that probably, I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's what I would expect has a relatively big impact on this time.
Yeah, yeah, because it's possible there's to release faster, so they're just taking advantage.
Yeah, they can actually, you can actually do it now. And then you're saying the assets right here.
I like that one. Soft spot for me, of course. But it's neat to see, studios. And if you look at the bars, the large studios is the dark bar, and the pinkish bar is the indies. So the large studios using over 30 assets packages for prototyping and concepting, because I think that's key.
Yeah.
A lot of us solo developers, we intend to put those assets in the game we release because that's where we are. We can't afford all that. But the prototyping is where the asset store shines, because you can increase. I mean, part of the less person hours spent is because you can leverage other people's work that have already been out there. But I love seeing that huge 30% of large studios are using over 30 packages for prototyping. That's huge. Indies are using less. I guess they have less to spend, but they're still using assets, which is wonderful to see. So obviously I like it when people are using assets.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think they're a good way to speed up development and make it so you can actually do stuff. I remember having to going without asset store stuff available and having to try to get things done and use placeholders and having to try to make my own placeholders. Speaking of assets, though, I wanted to mention we've got one of your asset packs is actually on sale right now, right? 50% off still.
So for just a couple more days, I think, right? That sale's ending pretty soon. The flash deals, but yeah, the fantasy RPG FPS, that RPG and FPS are just SEO basically for the engine on the asset store. But the character complete bundle, all the humans, elves, orcs, dragon, goblin, armor, weapons, sound is all included in that package. So that's I want to make an RPG and I need stuff to work with. That's the one to get. And it's 50% off right now. It's not a cheap package. It's like $350 or something. So you're saving $175. Now's the time to buy it. It rarely ever gets lower. It was a little bit lower just a few days ago. If you missed it, that's because you're not on my Discord. So come to my Discord and I will tell you when it's cheaper. But
it wasn't that much cheaper.
It wasn't. At this 50% is that's the sweet spot. That's most things will be 50% off. You could wait longer. It may never go on 70% for another year, 2 years, who knows? But certainly, yeah, now's the time to buy it, in my opinion. And the other one is the medieval town village environment. That one's also 50% off, so it's like $32 right now. And that's my town village environment. So if you want a place for these to run around in, you don't have one already, that's available too.
Nice. And you also told me that there was a new version of the courtyard up there, right?
Yeah. So for those who've been around for a while, you probably recognize this package. It just got updated earlier this week, I saw, for 2021. I think it had kind of been not updated for a while, and maybe it really wasn't working in the latest versions that well. So now it's been updated. There's no announcement, but it kind of just is there now. So have a look.
This one like highlighted, if I remember right, the HD RP lighting and all that, right?
Yeah. And it's a wonderful scene for lighting. You can see it just in the thumbnail there, the skylight coming through in the shadows. So, and all those angles and shapes, it's certainly designed for lighting. And it's a cool little level too. I played with it once years ago just to see. I was working with textures just to see how I could change the textures in it. But it's a fun little level too. It's a well designed little. If you need a demo level for some sci-fi game or battle game or just playing with your logic.
Yeah, I like that design. It looks like it reminds me of Stargate.
Yeah, sure.
So I like that thing. It was pretty cool. I'll have to grab it. I hadn't checked it out. I'm glad you shared that. So was there anything else in here that was really cool?
Yeah,
prototyping less than a month?
Prototyping, yeah, that's cool length of prototype phase, less than 1 month to prototype something.
And
I
that sounds about
assume,
right. That's for anybody who's curious, like how long a
yeah,
prototype should last. Usually, like 2 to 4 weeks. And if it's looking like it's going to become a game, then it may extend out. So like it gets to that 4 weeks, and it's like, okay, this is probably going to be what we're going to build. You may end up, extending out that prototype time. But usually, prototypes are done relatively quick because you want to disqualify or qualify the idea quickly and get on to the thing that's actually going to be worth building, and not spend too much time building something that you're just going to throw away.
yeah, yeah, and that seems to be. I mean, I would imagine that's the name of the game: being quick in that phase for a studio who's trying to think what's the next thing we're going to do. So that, there you go. And the next one is about the time to release. Apparently, studios that use Asset Store ship games faster. Makes sense if you're speeding up your prototype phase. If you're speeding up some of the stuff that you'd have to have somebody do, but instead you're using a pre-made asset or tool. Makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, I would imagine that would speed you up a lot. And there's a question related to assets. Matthew asked if I wanted to make assets, could that be lucrative if I was creative? So can you make? You're like the perfect person to ask. So can you make any money on the asset store as an asset store developer or
You
creator?
can. It's like all things. It's probably not easy, quote unquote, but if you're able to produce stuff and that stuff is valuable to you, then it might be valuable to others. There's work involved, of course. You got to create marketing images. AI helps with that these days. You gotta do the work on the documentation. You have to make sure people know how to use it, and that's a job, right? You making sure people know how to use the thing that you know how to use because you made it is not always easy. But yeah, I think there's plenty of publishers making a living. If I didn't live in an expensive area, I'd be making a living at it. I just happen to live in a place that's ridiculously expensive, so I don't make a living at it. But if I did, then in another area, so depending on where you live and your needs, you could make a full-time job. I mean, relatively easier than perhaps starting a restaurant.
Yeah, I would say so. And there's no initial costs, so there's no reason not to try, right? Like the startup cost is just your time. If you want to
Time.
become an asset publisher, you got to do the work of creating the little bit of art assets and the like for the images and the logos and all that stuff. But other than that, it's just create the thing that you want to sell that you think is useful. And I would definitely highly recommend that you do it if you're interested. Go try it out. The worst that happens is you put it up there and nobody buys it.
Yeah. And
That's still
I
not
actually
that bad.
got some good advice years ago from the publisher Pixel Crushers. I was at Unite in Boston at publisher dinner, and I was sitting next to Tony from Pixel Crushers. Very nice guy. If you ever have a chance to meet him, he'll be at GDC. So maybe you will meet him. But I had worked on a tool. At the time, I had only ever done art, never done a tool. And this was a tool that using Substance to basically turn any non-PBR material into a PBR texture with sliders and other stuff. And it was a converter. It's no longer on the store. It doesn't work anymore. It's lived its life. But I asked him, I was like, I've done this thing. I don't know if I want to put it up. And I don't know if people want it. He said, just do it. Put it up. See what happens. It was good advice. I don't know how much I made from it, but maybe $10,000, $15,000 over the next 2 years, 3 years. Definitely worth the time it took to make the thing because I made it already, most of it. It didn't take much more work to do the finishing touches on it. But the advice is basically put it up, see what happens. If nothing happens, oh well, you lost a little bit of time, probably learned some skills, and I'll keep talking then. So that would be my advice. On the thing about, let's see, speaking of assets, my thoughts on a PC. I haven't seen a PC Gamer article about this. I would say that, people steal, right? If there's money to be made, people are going to try and make money. When it comes to my stuff, I know that my stuff's not stolen, but, I honestly, there's always the chance that somebody on the asset store is selling stolen stuff. You just have to trust people, I guess.
Yeah, that's always one of the concerns that people had before, but I haven't seen it really be a big issue. I know that it can happen. I think that there was this one recent issue where there was a big publisher on the, I think it was on the Unreal store, right, on the Epic one, that they just banned, that was causing a bunch of problems. But
Yeah.
yeah, I personally, I don't generally worry about it. I think that a lot of the time too, if you have game players and game designers on your team, they instantly recognize and notice that stuff. So they do. And there's a question: aren't all assets vetted? I think that they are vetted, but it's not that impossible for something to slip through. There's just way too much art out there, and probably not enough good automated systems to catch everything that's stolen from something. There's somebody makes a game that you've never heard of that nobody played and has some art in it, very easy to take that art and put it into your own game, and nobody's going to know except for the one dude that made that game and the person that made that art.
Yeah.
So the people that are approving things on a store or something aren't necessarily going to know it. But I think that the goal is obviously to prevent that stuff. So
Yeah.
my guess is that they'll probably just build some tools that automate all that stuff soon, and that AI will just kind of take that over. So there was a question here about whether or not Unity is still the program to learn to make a game. I 100% would say yes. I think that it's the easiest and fastest and kind of most versatile way to learn to build a game. You can do it in a language that's very similar to most other programming languages. It's very similar to web development coding, and the engine lets you do just about anything that you want to do, from building out a 2D game, a 3D game, building a car interface inside your car, an augmented reality thing, virtual reality stuff. You can do pretty much anything. Too bad Dave's not here to talk about all the different kinds of crazy stuff that you can do with it. So yeah, I think it's my recommended way to learn. I know there are some other options out there, but I don't think that any of them are as good. I don't know. You got any other recommendations?
The community is still bigger, right? The community is way more vibrant, way bigger. The asset
Then
stores.
everything.
Oh, you invoked Dave.
Yeah.
You successfully invoked Dave. Yeah, it's so especially if you're learning, it's just starting out, Unity is the way to go. It's, from what I understand, easier. I'm very biased there because I get a headache when I try to use Unreal. But really, you're going to use Unreal, Unity, maybe Godot, but that's still early time. So if you're just starting out, Unity is the way to go. If you're going to be relying on help from the community, Unity is the way to go. If you're going to be using the AI, which is trained off of the past history of the community, use Unity. It's probably going to have more answers for you. I could be wrong there, though. I don't really know. But yeah,
I think it will, because there's Unity Answers and all that was a viable source in the subreddits. I mean, there's some stuff on Unreal, but Unreal was I think quite a few years behind on the going public and becoming free. Before, once they went to the $5 model, the community grew really fast.
Yeah.
But it's still obviously it took a long time to catch up, and it's still way behind. And
Yeah.
Unity's, I don't know how big. I wonder if anybody knows the stats on how much, like how many people are using Unity daily. I bet we'll hear these numbers at GDC. That's my expectation, is that I'll hear these numbers up on stage from both of the engine teams about how many people are using their engine. So maybe we can talk about it after that.
They're both going to say 5 billion people are using their engines.
That's it. What about the other 2.5 billion?
They're busy doing day jobs that they can't get out of.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They're stuck at McDonald's, like you were saying.
They're stuck at McDonald's and the cobalt mines. Yeah.
There was a question about Midjourney 5. Have you played with Midjourney 5 at all?
I have not. They said it came out. I did notice that it was. They were saying it's coming soon. I haven't seen it yet. I'm clicking over now just to see if that it actually came out. Where is the Midjourney? There it is. 5 is it out? Yeah, there. Yep. Turn it on. Okay. So yeah, it's saying much better stylistic range, much higher image quality, 2x resolution increase. Well, that's good because the resolution is fairly small. More detailed images, improved performance, supports tiles. It's experimental, but it supports tiling, which is good if you're doing textures. or making wallpaper or gift wrap, I guess.
That's actually really cool for I wanted to do some tile map stuff and some tiled grounds and stuff. So I think that could be a
It's funny. I in my game modules demo scene, I'm using AI art when appropriate, and I first started with tiled textures for the walls, for the ground, etc. And then I quickly realized, oh wait, Adobe's better at this. So let me just quickly make a tiled a ground or a wall in Adobe Substance Alchemist, which worked much better. So for game development, I'm not sure how valuable the tile will be. I think it's good for a quick thing, but if you have access to Adobe's Substance stuff, then that's probably better and just as fast. So yeah. But I'll play with it later today for sure. I've been working on a new AI art generated concept that I really enjoy. So we'll see how it changes.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check that out. I gotta dig into this too. I really haven't. The one thing I want to play with today is the Chat GPT-4 with images. I was talking to a buddy who was watching, was telling me about taking a picture of his fridge and having it recommend what to make out of it based on the ingredients in there. So
Yeah.
that was really cool.
My my mom told me about that. That's how prevalent this AI stuff is. My 80-year-old mother said, "You can take a picture of the stuff in your refrigerator." So
Yeah, so I want to
things
take a
sound like that.
picture of the next thing I'm going to test on it was taking a picture of a game level and having it write. I want to see if it can give me a way to get up there and then see if it can write me the code for it too.
Interesting.
Write me the code to move this character. I want to see if it can recognize what the character is and write me the code to get that character up there in the way that I want. I have no idea if it's going to be successful, but I really want to try it out and see.
Yeah. So is that basically like a very basic example? If I could send a picture of a maze and say, "Solve this maze for me."
Yeah, or like I want to give it a picture of like a platformer, like a Mario level, and
Oh,
say,
okay.
make me a character controller that can run this character along this level, and see if it can do it.
Oh,
I'm
with the
curious.
right height jumping, the right length, the right all of that stuff.
Yeah, I have no idea if it's gonna work, but I'm curious because that's where I expect it. Like once it gets to that point, that's when I expect it to have a huge impact. Where I can just tell it to kind of give me the things based off of an image. Well, I mean, even off of the description, and it's yeah, I don't know.
There's a toy. It's essentially a toy, but it's a tool that some kids of my friends have where you draw on paper with different colors, basically lines, and then it makes a game out of it. So green is ground, red is an enemy, and it works. It
Yeah,
totally works.
you play
Um,
it on a tablet, right?
yeah, yeah, and
Like, you scan in the paper and it
on
turns
the
it
paper,
into a
you're
game,
playing on
yeah.
a tablet. And they enjoyed like they spent 2 hours just all of them drawing all these levels. It was amazing. It got them. And I guess it's similar to that, but far better, I would imagine, because you're doing a lot more with it. But that so you could just draw out something instead of yeah.
Yeah. So, somebody mentioned in chat that there were over 1,000,000 active programmers on Unity at Unite 2022.
1,000,000
That's
program.
way less than 4,000,000,000, Andrew. I think you
Mm.
might have
I
lied to me.
probably heard that from a marketing pitch.
And then just fast the question if there will be an actionable AI presentation at this year's Game Dev Guild conference. I think there will be a couple. I just think the talks are still getting finalized though, and the final list and schedule will be up soon. It might already be up though. If anybody wants to check it out, I'll drop a link right there. It's coming up in May. It's all remote online. You don't have to travel anywhere or get dressed even. You might want to if you're going to hop into the expo hall though. It's a virtual expo hall, so you just hop on online and chat with everybody, talk to the speakers and everything. We are going to have lots of actionable Unity talks, so there's lots of stuff that's Unity focused on game development and kind of getting things done. Ideally, the thing when I sent out the call for speakers, the target was bring in talks that are actionable where developers can watch this, go to the session, ask any questions that they have, and then start using it that same day in their own projects, right? I want it to be so that people leave the talk and want to go use the thing immediately. So that's the goal, and hopefully the AI ones work out to be exactly that too. I just don't remember exactly the details on the AI ones. There are a lot of talks, so we have actually too many talks right now, trying to get the timeline perfect. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go check out the link, register. We have the early bird deal going on for I think another week still. All right, so let's see. There were a couple more questions. I've got to go in just a few minutes. Oh, is the early bird special still on? Yes, it is. I do have to go in a few minutes. There's a delivery about to be here. That's why I had to step away. That's what the call was. I assumed that they were going to come opening up the door any second now. I don't know if there's any other questions in chat. Did you have anything else you want to talk about this week?
No, I think that was GDC is exciting. Somebody asked where I'll be or where you'll be. I'm going to be very busy with the day job stuff, but I think I don't have an expo pass this year, and so I'm going to have to borrow one from a colleague. And so I'm hoping to be on the expo floor on Wednesday morning, walking around, and hopefully Thursday morning and maybe Friday afternoon. But or more morning. But that's probably the extent of my non-work stuff, unfortunately.
Yes, I will be there the whole time, just kind of running around, except for Thursday. I get to take babies to the zoo. That's going to be
Fun.
lots of fun. Well, I'll still be there Thursday morning too, but Thursday afternoon I get to take babies to the zoo and have fun.
Hopefully, it won't be raining.
Oh, I forgot about rain.
It's
It's
an
been
outdoor.
doing that a lot here too. It's really,
It's
really strange.
it might
Creek
happen
down
again.
here, I didn't even know it ever got water, and it looked like a river last week. I was like, "What the heck?" Like, there's literally a spot where you can drive through it. There's a road that goes through the creek.
Oh wow!
And yeah, last week it literally looked like a 30-foot wide river. And when I was driving up to go be on American Ninja Warrior last night, I noticed that the LA River was all full too. I'll
Yeah,
have to share some pictures of that too. I got
yeah.
quite a few of them. Pictures right outside right at the. Just to be clear for anybody curious, I did not compete. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. No, we were there
Ooh,
watching though, but we were right at the end. It was really cool. I got to see like the couple people that actually made it all the way to the end, and kind of watch them right there, like running up the little wall. It was a super neat experience.
that's cool.
Very cold though, and I'm extremely tired because it went until all night. They start those things at 6:30, and then it goes until I think about 6:30 in the morning. So it's like when we were leaving, the line to get in was like we left at I think like midnight, right around there, and the line to get in was packed. It was like a huge line just to get over there. All the
Oh,
people coming in that are going to stay there till like 5 in the morning, but it was
wow.
definitely cool, fun experience. So, all right, thanks everybody, I guess, for coming out here. You got nothing else to share, right? Just
Nope.
go grab the fantasy RPG pack, check out the courtyard, and register for GameDev Guild if you haven't already. Oh, and there's a link for the boot camp to students for that. It just fixed or just released lesson 36F for pooling. I didn't realize that one hadn't been set to public, so that one's just went out right before the show. So have a great week, and if anybody's at GDC, please hit me up, send me a message, and we'll connect. We'll be all around there just chatting with people and hanging out. So see you
Yep.
all very soon. And oh, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, thumbs up, and all that other fun stuff. All right.